How's everyone doing this morning? Good? Good. Do you know what defeat looks like? There I was, sitting in the office of my high school college counselor. And all around me, I saw students rushing in and out of the office with great excitement. But for me that day, I experienced great sadness. For the first time in my life, I felt broken and lost. And I realized that I didn't make it. Now, this was a time when many students were getting their acceptance letters into college, and I was not accepted into college. And with a month away from graduation, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember just sitting in my high school college counselor's office with just tears falling down my face because I felt like all hope was gone. Yes, this is what defeat looks like. In this moment, I learned that in order for me to really change my situation and to overcome this temporary hard setback, I had to learn how to reshift my focus, to reshift my perspective. And one thing that I've learned in this moment was that when life throws you a curveball, you bloom where you're planted. After that moment, I was speaking to Ms. Schoenfeld, who was my high school college counselor, and she was telling me about an opportunity at the local community college that I can take advantage of. And I was quite upset because most of my friends are going away to four-year schools, and here I am settling for a community college. And to a larger extent, I felt like I disappointed my family. As the first generation African American and Caribbean American, going to college was always this pinnacle of achievement. And because I did poorly on my SATs, I felt like I missed the mark. So after enrolling into community college, in that moment, I learned the power of persistence and how to persist through my setback. And because of that, I was then able to graduate from community college and then attend Clark University in Massachusetts, where I got my bachelor's degree. But in that moment, I've learned the power of persisting through my setback once that curveball was thrown at me. Now, what does persist through my setback means? I'll give you an example. Let's go around the world to a rural village in the western province of Rwanda. You are now a Peace Corps volunteer. And as a community health volunteer, while it was a challenging experience, it was both painful yet promising. It was painful because every day when I walked to my health center, I encountered children who were either orphans as a result of genocide, who lost their hope. I encountered mothers who were unable to provide for their families. And I encountered projects that failed continuously in me trying to make a difference in my community. But it was also promising because I was able to instill hope into the students that I taught daily. I was able to teach mothers how to grow their own fruits and vegetables with kitchen gardens. I was able to really make a difference in my students' life because I was able to instill in them the belief that their temporary situation was not a permanent situation, that they too can achieve their goals, they too can dream and wish for a better life outside of the village. And in that moment, I've learned that every setback is a setup for a great comeback. And as a student in high school, I never thought Peace Corps was a reality for me. I didn't think that I too one day can be around the world making a difference in a rural community. At the end of that decision letter of rejection, I thought life was over. I didn't see any possibilities of achievement because I didn't have any examples in my family of those that went to Peace Corps. But in that moment, through persisting through that setback, I was able to then translate that belief and that power, that encouragement, into many of my students and those in the village. Now, returning from Rwanda back to the United States was a great challenge. As you can imagine, with the political climate, with just the transformative experience of going from a different cultural context and reintegrating back into the United States, was really hard for me. After losing my grandfather last February, I didn't quite know how I was going to make it. As a mentor, my grandfather was going to be 93. And he instilled in me this belief of resilience, of having a positive mental attitude, of not allowing my temporary setback to hold me down, that I was greater than my circumstances. So in coming back, I struggled because in understanding what job was I to apply to. After having such a transformative experience for 2 years, I can't come back and sit in an office. That's not realistic for me. And I struggled, and I applied to maybe over 50 jobs. And have you ever applied to a job that you thought you were going to get, and you were so close to attaining it, and then they don't call you back? That happened to me about 15 times. And it was frustrating. And there were several points during my reintegration process where I also wanted to give up. Because there's something about when you have to constantly prove your worth, improve yourself continuously, and then places are saying you're not good enough, or you're not good enough for this position. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that time and time again. But then I learned the power of persistence. I learned the power that every so often life will throw curveballs at you. And that when that happens, you want to bloom where you're planted. You may not have the greatest situation that you're in currently, but if you're able to persist through that setback, you grow a new layer of strength. And you're able to overcome and surmount things that you never thought you would be able to do. So every setback is a great setup for a comeback. And as I look back and I think about where I've came from, because of persistence, I was able to graduate from high school. I was able to continue through community college. I was able to travel to Austria in community college, where we stayed at the castle where they filmed The Sound of Music. And it was free. Which was even better. And having the opportunity to go around the world to be a Peace Corps volunteer really changed my life. And it was a hallmark of all of my experiences because it showed me what was possible when you dream. That if you were able to see beyond that situation, what was possible after you overcame fear. And here I am today. So this is the onboarding picture of EPA. And all of that to say is that my journey has not been easy. And when I think back to my experience in high school, it was my ability to persist through setback that allowed me to be in front of you today. Had I given up on those few disappointments when I was applying to jobs, I wouldn't have persisted to the point to apply to EPA. And along the way, I had great mentors, great people in my life that guided me and pushed me to believe in myself. I think life begins to change when you're able to believe what people are telling you. Sometimes, it's easy for someone to externally see good things in you, and it's hard for you to actually see that in yourself. And the day that you actually believe that is the day your life changes, because there's a paradigm shift. And as sitting in that chair, in that office that day with tears in my eyes, it was hard for me to make that paradigm shift, because that was my reality. But because I was able to step out on fear and step out on faith, I've been able to have these experiences that led me here today. So I encourage you that when life throws you a curveball, you bloom where you're planted. Next, you want to persist through your setback, because every setback is a great setup for a great comeback. Thank you.